So Point Lobos is part of the ancestral land of the Rumsen and Ohlone people, Rumsen and Esalen people. And their territory included Point Lobos and went into the Carmel Valley. Um, the land and the sea provided everything that the people needed. So food, medicine, supplies for making houses, tools, and baskets. And the reason they used the land and the sea was because there were no grocery stores, there were no pharmacies, there were no hardware stores, no Michaels, no Target. So in talking to kids, just that's a good way of helping them like reframe their way of thinking about the land here. When the Spaniards arrived, the Rumsen, I'm a little nervous. The Rumsen were living here, and this landscape would have been very different. The pine trees would have been up on the hillsides, on the ridge lines, and there would not have been quite as much in the way of poison oak. And that's because the land was managed by fire. And why did they use fire? It clears away insects and it clears away weeds and the underbrush, and that helps for gathering the acorns, but it also helps fertilize the soil, which helps the plants that they want grow, which are the grasses and the wildflowers where they're gathering the seeds, and also some of the materials that they need for their basketry. And it also is food for the animals that they're hunting. So the elk, the deer, the rabbits, bear. So that's the reason fire was used, and that created a different landscape. But Point Lobos would have primarily been used, yes?
So
Sorry.
Did they actively set the fires?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
And how do they manage?
I think it's heritage knowledge, so you don't set the fires, when it's really windy. You set, and I don't know that they were done year after year. So that's some of the indigenous knowledge that I haven't had a chance to study. So Point Lobos, the area here would have been used primarily for gathering shellfish, mussels, and abalone and clams. In particular, mussels were a very big part of their food source. The word alun is Rumsen, and it's the word for abalone. And so over time, it changed from the Spaniards started off calling them alun, but over time it morphed into abalone. So what part of the plants can you use for food? Well, leaves, flowers, fruits, seeds, and roots and bulbs. So what I have tried to do is, there are many more plants that would be used than I'm going to talk about, but I tried to pick those that you will see when you're walking along the Sea Lion Point Trail and the Cypress Grove Trail. So the flowers of the poppy were used for food. The fruits, California blackberry. Leaves, again, the California poppy. Sticky monkey flower, the small tender leaves. Also tender leaves of the soap plant. Seeds, California sagebrush. And so you can see that there's little flowers now. Those will go to seed. Monterey pine, we just saw that where they were looking at the Monterey pine isn't the greatest example of pine seeds. You'd want pinon probably, so that's probably more in the inland areas, but you could eat the pine seeds. And then roots and bulbs. So the soap plant, slow roast that bulb, and it's a very sweet tuber. So medicine, they used a lot of the plants for different types of medicine. So if you crush up the leaves and make pulp and mix it with water, the California sagebrush, you have an aromatic poultice that can go on the body for colds and coughs and for asthma. Wood mint was used as a gargle for sore throats. I might need some of that by the end of this. California poppy, the juice was used to treat lice. crushed leaves were of the sticky monkey flower were put. We often say, "Oh, look, you can use this as a band-aid." It would have been groups of them mushed up and used, and it was particularly good for rope burns and infected sores. And the roots of the California blackberry were used for infected sores. What's going to give you infected sores? Poison oak. So the blue blossom, ceanothus, that could be used for a soap or a shampoo. The soap plant bulb was used to make a soap for washing, and the pounded stems were also used to make a treatment for dandruff. And the bulb layers could be used to make glue. Monterey pine, the pitch was used as an adhesive. So the plants that were used for making houses, primarily you're going to have tule reed, and there would have been far more vernal pools and estuaries and streams where there would have been tule growing. But they also could use the wild rye. You see a big batch of it over there, and they bundle it together as thatch for the houses. Douglas iris, the edges of the leaves could be pulled apart and twisted to make a very fine thread. Poison oak stems were used in basketry. And also when you break them, the stems can ooze a sap that's black dye that was used for these three distinctive non-permanent tattoos that the women used. They also used it to dye basketry materials. And the coyote brush, there's some over there. The stems are very stiff and stripped of their leaves, twisted, quickly between the hands, or were made and used as fire sticks to start fires. Okay, so how many minutes was that? Okay, I can take some questions then.
Where did you source a lot of this information? I'm fascinated.
There's a number of resource materials in our docent library and on our docent website. So there were some very good, there's a good manual document that was written by Linda Yamani, who's a Rumsen tribal elder cultural historian.
Okay.
So she wrote something, and there's also a teacher's guide that was prepared for the East Bay, and that's Ohlone curriculum. And there's a compilation of essays that's called The Gathering of Voices that Linda Yamani edited, and so there's some information in there. And then back in the 20s, there were ethnographers who were interviewing some of the last speakers of Rumsen, and John Harrington was interviewing people. And so some of that information is, a lot of that information was shared by those women who were, the last speakers of Rumsen.
Yeah, okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.